Ho, 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 'tis the season. It is friggin' cold out. It's 20 degrees Fahrenheit right now. And yet, I am getting another influx of questions from viewers. With temperatures dropping, if you are already an electric vehicle driver, you already know this is range loss season. Meaning, once those heaters come on, your range starts disappearing quicker than ever. And sun's coming in a bit. Ooh. Of course, it was cloudy out until I turn on the video camera. So the question I am getting, to get more specific, is why doesn't Tesla use a heat pump instead of just resistive heaters? That is actually a very awesome question, and I'd like to know why they don't do that now myself. But to explain why they currently don't, first we'll take a step back and let me look at my notes here. How is the system set up? We will talk about first. So the existing setup in the car. For heating the cabin, the car uses resistive heaters, which is basically like a giant space heater. This can go anywhere from a kilowatt up to about little over 6 kilowatt of power draw, and that's a fair amount of power. And on the S and the X, that is determined, the steps are determined. If you have range mode turned on or not, range mode will reduce the amount of power used for heating and also air conditioning for that matter. Range mode off, it'll give you the full amount of power. Model 3 does not currently have a range mode setting, and I am not familiar enough with how those operate, as I don't have one, to explain or exactly give a demonstration on that one. Oh, we got another classic Model S just pulled up. Busy day at the supercharger. Now, to get even more detail, which we'll refer back to later on, the car also heats the battery pack to keep it in its happy place. So there's a resistive heater for the battery pack, and also the car cools the battery pack and cools the motor. There's a coolant loop that goes through that system, those systems. So as you're heating the battery pack, or if the battery pack's too hot and it needs to get cooled, the coolant flows throughout the battery pack and also the motor. There's pumps that do that to get the coolant to bring the temperature on those to the happy place. That is done, and where the coolant is shunted to and from is done by a unit called the chiller. And I will link to another video in the description box, because the chiller is designed and made by a company here in Wisconsin called Modine Manufacturing. Modine. I think Modine, actually. And they're about a half hour south of Milwaukee. And I did a photo shoot with them in 2013 and got to see the chiller. This was when all this stuff was still pretty secretive. It's a neat little unit. Small, does about that big. And the magic of that is it can also shunt the coolant, or the cooling power, from the air conditioning to the battery and motor to cool those when needed, and also then to the passenger, the cabin, the passenger compartment. So keep that in mind. Keep note about the cooling of the battery pack and motors. Now we will go on to why there isn't a heat pump. For starters, number one, and I gotta look at this. I'm on a few different meds at the moment, and I'm not allowed to have caffeine or any kind of stimulant that will really wake me up. And I can't even have orange juice at the moment because it's too acidic. So, brain's not functioning at full RPM, if you get my drift. For the most part, heat pumps don't work quite as well in cold temperatures as resistive heating. Heat pumps, depending on, and this is all one of those cost-based things, the more expensive and higher in the unit, usually it'll work better at lower the temperatures. But most of your heat pumps, generally modern heat pumps, are going to work well down to about 0 to -5 degrees Fahrenheit. And I have no idea. Hey Siri, -5 degrees Fahrenheit to Celsius.
-5 degrees Fahrenheit is -20.6 degrees Celsius.
-20.6 degrees C. And most common heat pumps are going to be found in those mini split air conditioning heating units all over the place. Now, a heat pump is a reversed air conditioner, whereas an air conditioner takes heat from one place. In the case of a car or a house, it'll take the heat from inside the house during the summer and blow that outside. So it's pumping the heat outside, causing the inside or inside of your car to cool down. A heat pump, air conditioner actually is just a heat pump. Only we just call them air conditioners, single-use device, cool a space. Whereas a heat pump can air condition or heat a space. It's reversed. So in this case, it would take the heat from outside and pump it inside, thus heating up your car or a home or an office. The difference is the colder it is outside, the less heat there is for the heat pump to draw. So while it might work at -5 degrees, it's not as efficient as it would be at, say, 40 degrees or 50 degrees. Although there are also some heat pumps that work as cold as -20 or -30 degrees Fahrenheit. But those are really, really costly. Next, reliability. A resistance heater, once again, that's basically a space heater, is reliable. It basically needs either the power on or the power off. That's pretty much it. So for reliability, a resistance heater will pretty much work, whereas a heat pump is as reliable as an air conditioner is going to get. And I don't know if I want to bank driving on -30 degrees Fahrenheit on a possible failure of a heat pump. Dehumidification. A heat pump either does heat or air conditioning. Can't do both at the same time. And cars generally need the air conditioner, even in the winter, to defrost the windows or defog, get the humidity out from inside the vehicle. So your window starts fogging up from, when we breathe, we're expelling moisture from our breath, windows fog up. So the air conditioner actually turns on in your car when you go to defrost the windows. Now, even vehicles with heat pumps that are out there, a few of them, I think the current Nissan Leaf does, as well as the Kia Soul EV, just for a couple examples. They also have resistive heaters as backups, not as powerful as purely resistive, because they're splitting it between two systems. So that is a possibility, but it adds complexity to the system. So on those vehicles, the air conditioner would then shut off. The heat pump valves, I don't know exactly what to call it, brain's farting out on me, would switch over into air conditioning mode and then blow the dry, cool air onto the window along with the heat from the resistance heating to defog the windows. Just another complication in the system. Cooling. Now, vehicles like the Nissan Leaf do not actively cool their batteries. However, Tesla's much more advanced battery packs do. It's called active thermal management. It doesn't just blow air through a system to cool it down or let it passively dissipate. It actually does cool, and with refrigerant, using the car's air conditioner, the battery pack and the motor, even in the winter. A good example, I'm at a supercharger right now. At peak charge rate, even though it is 20 degrees Fahrenheit right now, which is below freezing, the air conditioner, not just the cooling fans, but the air conditioner in the vehicle kicked in to cool the battery pack as I'm charging. That's how Tesla cars can maintain such a high rate of charge for such a long period of time without causing damage to the batteries. Now, in the wintertime, if you're relying on a heat pump to heat the cabin, and the car needs cooling the battery pack, guess what? Now you're losing your heat to the cabin. If it's really cold out and there's only a few resistance heat strips, you might start getting just a little bit chilly. Limited Tesla resources. And right now I'm thinking this is probably the biggest reason. Stop calling me people. This is probably the biggest reason Tesla's not using the heat pumps. And telemarketers is, God, I even have this thing on silent. Resources is probably the biggest reason that Tesla does not use a heat pump in the Model S, X, or 3 at this time. Things can change in the future. Tesla's goal was first to get a vehicle to market. Second, to actually be profitable so they can continue putting vehicles to market. Because if a company's not making money, it's just a hobby and it probably is not going to be able to sustain itself. So when the S was first coming out, why complicate something that does not need to be complicated yet? And with such large battery packs, unlike so many other EVs, it is not as much of a hit, which is why things like the Nissan Leaf, who have much, much smaller and tiny battery packs, needed the heat pumps, was to save as much power as possible because it's so much more efficient. It can be as much as 3 times more efficient, and in some cases more than using resistive heating. But as I said, that could change in the future. Tesla's now turning a profit. Tesla's got a good, is all set up on their Model S manufacturing line. They're set up on the Model X manufacturing line, and the 3s are getting pumped out. So it is possible on a refreshed design for the Model S, X, or 3 that we could, in fact, see the newer heat pumps put in and the systems redesigned now that they have and are starting to have the resources to do so. Which brings us to complicated system. Well, overall, in general, a heat pump's really not that complicated on its own. There's a additional valve system. I think it's called a reverse flow valve. I could be wrong on that. You HVAC guys, please don't chew me out on that. But they're very small, very compact. That's not the problem. The problem with the complications is integrating it with the rest of the car, active thermal management of both the motor and the battery pack. So getting everything to act all nice and happy together is the problem. I mean, there's ways around that, different ways to mitigate that. They could leave the resistance heater at the same size that it is now and still rely mostly on the heat pump until cooling's needed for the battery pack. They could redesign it so it could actually take heat from the battery pack to heat the car in cases of the battery pack getting too hot. So there's ways around it. I did read somewhere where someone just said Tesla was pure lazy, but I believe they have been working their butts off and they are doing a pretty darn good job so far. I mean, they started from nothing and look how big and how much they're making all the other manufacturers scramble. And lastly, cost savings. It's additional costs in the vehicle for manufacturing, additional service, something additional. Just overall, in general, it's just more to do when that resistive heating is just so cheap and simple to put in. Because remember, resistive heating for the cabin and the battery pack. Boom, boom, done. How much does a space heater cost? Next to nothing. So I hope you learned a little bit about what I could put together of why Tesla may or may not, well, does not currently, but might in the future use a heat pump. Please don't forget, like and subscribe if you have not. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my Facebook page. Links are in the description box below. Your subscribing to my channel helps my channel keep going. And if you're looking to purchase a looking to purchase a Model S, X, or 3, or if you're watching this years down the line, please consider using my referral code. That also helps me continue to provide content for you guys, attend Tesla events, and I'm still hoping I might one day be able to get one of those free roadsters from Tesla for referring people. I mean, that doesn't hurt. Make some new videos for you guys and some new content, because I'm running out of ideas. As Mike Rowe said on Dirty Jobs, submit your ideas. And because I'm beating a dead horse with a Autopilot 1 car here in a 90D. So let's make it happen. See you guys next video.